So back in April of 2022, it's when Heaven Hill announced that the plans to open up a new $135 million distillery that'll be opening in by 2024. Construction is going to start at some point, but the initial production starts at 150,000 barrels a year. And over time, we'll have the capacity to ramp up to 450,000.
And this is coming off a addition of the Chavley, the Bernheim facility too.
Which is doing roughly around 100 to 120, something like
1,500 a day, right?
1,500 a day? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that number, and you can do the math out there. So kind of talk about what you all were seeing in regards of either market, demand, anything like that said, all right, it's time to go ahead and use some of the Shapiro money and throw down and build for the future.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things that have played into this. I think that we have definitely continued to see really strong growth across the core of our portfolio. So whether that's Evan Williams or Elijah Craig, in particular, those two brands have been really strong. And in that same period of time, while we've seen growth on those brands, we've had to restrict the growth of other brands in order to make sure we can service the growth of those brands. So a brand like Henry McKenna Single Barrel, boy, wouldn't you like to see that on the shelf more often? Oh, well, right?
Thank God Fred's not here. We could all punch him in the face for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, with that award, the brand took off. And now nobody can find it on the shelf. And we would love to be able to provide it on the shelf. It's one of the brands that you hear it all the time, but we kind of think of it as like the hallmark. It has every attribute you could want possibly in a bourbon. It's single barrel, bottled and bond, 10 years old. We can't provide more of it right now. We've had to restrict it because of our whiskey inventory. And so as we look at the whiskey inventory and we look at what we've done at Bernheim, one of the major reasons for needing a new distillery is that we're landlocked at Bernheim. We have now expanded that facility to 1,500 barrels a day, and that is where we're at. We can't do more than that there. And so what does that mean for us as we go forward? And so we decided we needed to start looking at this. I mean, really, we started looking at it probably 5 or 6, if not longer ago, and we kind of like you all, the crystal ball piece, you're like, when is the tide going to turn on bourbon? What is that going to happen? And we just haven't seen that happen yet. And so we decided to build out in Bardstown, which was great because it's a homecoming to our, roots in Bardstown, and really bringing it back to really very near it's just a few miles away from our plant there and our facilities and warehouse facilities there. So we're excited about that. And we think that, when you look at bourbon today and the way tourism is creating what was Napa in California for wine, we anticipate that even if it does start to plateau off, it's going to plateau off at a much higher space and place than it would have prior to any of this growth that we've been seeing. Not to mention the fact that when you look at our portfolio, only about 3 to 4% of it is in international. So we still have a huge opportunity.
How much is domestic versus international currently?
Yeah, it's a small percentage. And so we think we still have a really major opportunity in the international markets to also service with our liquid. And so we need more liquid to do that. And as you look at kind of our inventory overall, I always say when we're trying to manage the whiskey portfolio, it's unlike any other kind of industry out there. It's funny because we'll start to see momentum on a brand and it's like, oh, this is awesome. Everybody listen, you want to be successful, right? There's not much you don't want to be successful with in life. So when you see a brand growing, you're like, this is amazing. This is awesome. Love the consumers that are coming to these brands, sell. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, pull back. We're not going to have enough. Wait a minute, pull back. So it's such an odd part of the industry that you're constantly playing whack-a-mole, we say. As soon as you handle one issue with the whiskey inventory, okay, we now have enough age of this whiskey, you've created another issue over here, and you're just constantly trying to kind of manage those issues as we look at the inventory over time.